Okay.
Yay!
Unleashed podcast. Okay. So before we get started, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping just to make sure because we're going live. We just want to remind everyone to be kind, in your comments. And if someone says something you don't agree with, just give them grace. Maybe having a bad day or a bad life. We don't know, but we're here to support. And I say that because instead of just hearing us talk about a topic tonight, I'm going to be reading some comments that we've gotten from viewers, family, friends, and you may not agree or you may not, want to say something nice, but let's just keep those things to ourselves. So our topic tonight is actually it did come from one of the comments that was kind of DM'd to me, but this was months ago, and I held on to it, and I'm glad I did. Just kind of trying to see how we can fit it in with what we do on our platform, and it was from a man, a young man, and we service women who tell stories here and their truth, and this is what this platform is for. But now it's all about the collective, and if you're having a problem or a concern, bring it to us. And he did, and it's about when relationships go bad and people start to leverage their children, you know, and how and what trauma that causes. And when they're leveraging their children, we're talking about in conflict situations. And we're going to get a little deeper, and I'm going to go through some of those type of conflicts. I am your co-host, Cara Maldonado.
And I'm Kimberly Anderson, and we are both very excited to be here. And that's a great question to start off with, Cara. I think, we do have obviously a lot of women viewers, but men too. And, they're trying to see what's going on the other side here. And I think that's a great
Absolutely.
question, and I appreciate it. And yeah, let's dive into that one first.
Yes. So, let's talk about that. If any of you are have been in a situation, maybe you had a child and you split up from your partner, or you were married and had children and got a divorce or a separation, and the effects that we as adults tend to go through different issues, financial, if it's cheating, if it's I just don't like you anymore, or you're too different and none of your things that you like are compatible. You just don't have compatibility anymore. But you have this whole family there. How do we choose to deal with that? Okay, so then in this gentleman's situation, these are some of the things that came up. Okay, so I'm gonna read off some of the concerns here. I'm gonna be reading off a lot of comments here. There's a thing called triangulations, and I will tell you more about that. And that is when you take a child and you put them in between the parents and you play them off of each other. And children do that. Children innately do that when they're babies. Daddy, can I have this? Go ask your mom. Did you ask your dad? We tend to start that instead of someone taking a stand. And then when it goes completely wrong in the relationship, that becomes the way your child starts communicating. But now it's ugly. Now it's not loving. Ask your mom for that piece of pie. No, your dad said later. It becomes, what did your mom do? What did she say? Who was she with? All those type of games start to happen. And then what happens is the parent annihilation. One starts poisoning the child. Kim, you're going to give us some feedback on this. I'm going to get through this list, and then I'm going to look to you. I I
People
have
boiling
my
up.
own situation, right? But you know exactly what I mean by that. It's that negative. It's telling your children negative things about the other parent. whether it's making them choose sides by talking, about personal things that should be between adults, or just completely throwing mud is what I used to call it, and just slamming that other parent for whatever reason, all the things for all the years that you've known them, and then you make up some things, right? And then this guy was, said this was one of the number one things is withholding the child, and he was the one who actually used the word using my child as leverage, because dangling that child like this. Do you want to see it? You got to do this, this, and that. You have to give me this. You have to just almost tap dance to see your child. Now, to me, that's ridiculous, especially in the sense that there's some parents that are just absent parents,
Hmm.
not trying to see their children at all. And when you have someone stepping up saying, we didn't work out, I still love my child, I'm respecting you enough, and I'm here and I want to see my child, but yet you make them jump through hoops, what message does that send your child, right? And then using your child as a messenger. Call your dad, ask him for money, tell him you need this. Call your mom, tell her I'm going to pick you up. What? These are kids. And this is real stuff. This really happens. I personally have seen it happen. I know it. So when I got this DM, it was like, whoa, he's not making this stuff up, right? Yes. And then the ultimate is when it all just goes to IT, okay? The child is blamed. There are some people out there that will have the audacity to say to the child, if I didn't have you, my life would be better. If I didn't have you, this wouldn't have happened. If you weren't born, things would be easier.
That
Okay?
just breaks my heart to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. It is true. Now that's a fact. Now that's my personal experience. I was told that
I know.
at two
It
years
just
old.
breaks my heart.
So yeah, it's crazy. So that's what it looks like
Yeah.
when you're leveraging your child in conflict situations because your partnerships isn't working, and whatever your partner is to you or looks like to you, sometimes it's not even an intimate situation. It's whoever helped step up to help you raise that child, but whoever that child is looking for guidance, protection, support, and you choose to act out in any of those manners, that's a problem. That's a problem.
All right, I can't keep quiet anymore.
No, I want comments. I want people to comment. Kim, I need you to talk about your personal experience with this while I look at the comments. And
Okay.
I want the
Well,
viewers to chime in too and let us know what you think about that.
I've been on the other side of that where and at the end of the day your children are not your pawns. They are your children. As a matter of fact, they are your legacy. If you do nothing at all in life and you have children, they become that legacy. And it just absolutely eats me up inside that people use kids as the pawns. And to go through any one of those scenarios that you mentioned,
Yeah.
it's not okay. Be an adult. Just because your relationship with the other parent isn't, you know, roses and rainbows, that's
Right.
fine. We can grow apart. We can have different lives. Like, let go of the hate and the anger and the hurt and move on. And just both of you step up and be a parent to that child. Help that child become successful, be happy, safe. It just drives me crazy because I went through it on the other side of it and it was extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And so I completely empathize with this guy and I completely get it from the other side. So it doesn't matter which parent you are, mommy or daddy,
Right.
just be a parent to your child. Be a mommy, be a daddy, and help them grow up to be happy, successful pillars of the community. Let them live a
Absolutely.
happy life because you know what? All the shit that you're putting them through, they will remember it and
Yes.
that will build resentment. And then what you're doing today will bite you in the butt tomorrow because they will take that through adulthood and you might not have a relationship with your child anymore. And it
Right.
happens all the time.
All the
So
time.
grow up is what I'll say. Know that, you know what? People, I mean, think about all the people you've ever met in your life. Like some of them are there for a season, for a day, for many, many years. Just because you've had a child with this person does not mean you have to turn around and just hate them down to nothing and involve your child in that.
Right.
Just be a better parent. Love them, that the children as much as you can and get let them be happy and have a great life. Show them what other opportunities are out there. Just because a marriage breaks up or a relationship breaks up does not mean it's the end of the world.
Right.
You can still be happy and successful. So just remember that your children are your legacy no matter what you do in
Hmm.
life. And what you what they're learning from you today, they will remember tomorrow. And
Yes.
they listen like kids can hear stuff when you're whispering. They can't hear you when you're yelling at them or telling them to clean their room, but by God, they
Right.
can hear you whisper something that they shouldn't hear, and they'll be like, "Oh, I heard that," and here we
Yeah.
go. So
That's true.
just you know, be a good human, be a
Yeah.
good parent, be a good co-parent. That child's your legacy.
Which is really important. Quick shout out. Hi, Michelle. And I'm sorry you went through that too. And sorry to anyone who is dropping, comments in the chat. It's not a easy thing, and it's not something that, we want to do. And sometimes it's not even intentional. There are those that are out there that, intentionally go after that other parent and involve kids. There are some cases where, that it isn't intentional because we're caught up still in what we talked about in one of our other episodes is the grief of
Mhm,
the loss of the relationship.
mhm.
I have to say, as a mom and a grandmother now, there's times when I may have been upset about something or a situation, not totally conscious of my actions or my words at
Right.
that moment and what it does to that child that's in the room, and what it does is, and when we say harm, it doesn't mean that I smacked them or that this mother did, but it's an emotional thing. They
Mhm.
become afraid because kids then what do? They turn around and they blame themselves, because they don't understand why are all these adults arguing, fighting. Why can't I see my dad? Why is my mom saying this? What's happening? What's going on? If I could have just done this better, if I would have behaved, if I, got better grades, all the ifs and buts comes up because as adults, we're so caught in either our grief, our pain from how the relationship deteriorated, or on the flip side of that, the hate and the destruction and how I'm going to get you back, right? You're
Mhm.
so caught up in that at a level of you don't see what it's doing to the children in the home, how it's even affecting you when you go to work because you're just seething, you're just bringing that ugly energy everywhere you go, and every conversation you have is going to go back to that. So it goes back to what you were saying, Kimberly, is that everything, we have to learn some things are just a season, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, when you say your vows and all those kind of things, you do hope that it is something that you don't got to keep doing over and over again. But they do say three times is a charm, so I don't know. I mean, it's different for everyone, but it's a decision you made as an adult.
Right.
right? It's a decision, it's a choice that you have. So you can choose to take it, accept it, process it, deal with it, find out what didn't work so you don't repeat it,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And learn from it so you grow, so you teach, right? So that you don't sit there with all that negative energy and just talking about if I had a known and woulda, shoulda, coulda, and all that kind of stuff. While the little ones, and especially when they're younger, they don't understand any of that. All they feel is that negative energy.
Yeah.
And then you know what they do when they grow up? Because you're not a good role model, or you were bad at that time and you didn't even go back and circle back around and have the conversation, mom and dad had a bad time there. Because you have to do this, you have to do that as an adult. When you show you're behind, you have to go back and say, you know what, my bad, shouldn't have done that, that wasn't right, I
Yeah.
was in a bad way, whatever it is. But you have to have that conversation. You got to eat that crow, right? You got to have that conversation. Or else what happens is people just say, okay, that's just who she is, you know, or they're like, okay, what did I do? It's one or the other, and it could be you didn't even have anything to do with it. 9 times out of 10, they didn't. There's nothing about that. It's you not knowing how to own your mess and then how to go back and have the conversation, which is a hard conversation to have, but you have to do it because you're teaching that child. I have lots of messages. Okay. You're teaching that child. Sorry, you guys, you know how we do it. I'm never scripted. We're just going to fly by it and we're going to get it done. Okay. But you're teaching that child to not be accountable and be responsible, or to blame themselves, or to think that hate and disparage and conflict is the way to be.
No,
And
it's
that's
just,
not what we're going to do.
yeah.
What do you
Take
think, Kimberly?
responsibility, apologize if you're in the guilt and the hurt and you say something and you lash out, apologize to the child if they're around and they heard you, and take responsibility. You're absolutely right. Because
So,
that's when you can start healing.
absolutely. We have a couple of messages, and I'm going to read it out and you tell me. One is, what would you have done differently to protect your children based on the experiences? And I could take that. I think, I went through some really bad things, and like we all have with our kids. And I think that part of my journey was I had not done the work to heal. I didn't even know I needed to heal. And I think now with there's so much out there in education. Social media wasn't a thing. I still had encyclopedias, when I went off to college and school. So
Right.
this wasn't really a thing. So, and if you weren't being told this or taught this in your home, or your best friend didn't have the nerves to say to you, girl, this person isn't good for you, this isn't right for you, and you got to do something different. I really wish that the people that were around me would have saw the things that I didn't see, or would have validated the things that I brought up and questioned and asked, because I was young. And now that I know these things, I talk about it openly to my granddaughters, to my daughter, and I talk about these things. I wish that I would have known a lot of things that I see now so clearly. Love is blind, and all
Hmm.
love isn't good love. All
Right.
love isn't good for you, because everything that looks good ain't good for you. Okay, not good for
And
you.
and
All
I will
right.
say this, that I know for me, I was just crippled in fear that he would take me to court again
Yeah.
and just continue to strip away me being able to be around my kids, even though he was the one in the wrong.
Right.
And so for me, I think had I been able to not allow that fear to stop me in a lot of ways, I would have pushed harder to try and keep the kids more protected. And I did what I could at the time,
Right.
and with the resources that I thought were available to me, which I did not know much about them. That's why we're such huge advocates about getting out the resources and telling
Yeah.
people there's so much out there, reach out.
Right.
But I was just crippled in fear
Yeah.
and afraid, which is, hindsight's always 2020. And I look back and I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have really done what I could have. But at the end of the day, I never allowed what was going on interfere with my relationship with my kids. Even though he completely poisoned their minds about me, I still remained true to myself and true to who I was as a mom. And I
Right.
continued to reach out. I continued to have conversation. And then now they're, 20 and older, and I'm on the phone with them constantly. Like
Yeah.
they're always coming to me. Like it
Right.
so don't ever give up hope either, but know
Mhm.
that there's a lot of help and resources out there and you don't have to be afraid.
Exactly. And and you all that follow us know that at the end of postings of our episodes, we usually put resources in there for you to contact on your own time. And then, a few of you have even followed up with us behind the scenes to talk about what we spoke on the episode. Just to piggyback off of what you were saying about building that relationship with your children when they see you going through so much, so that you don't even realize that how you're behaving or how hurt you are is affecting them. It's the emotional wounds that they get and the feelings of, I'm never going to be married, I'm not going to take this, all these conversations that go on in their heads. And sometimes they grow up and repeat the cycle because there was no intervention, there was nothing, no conversation. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. I'm going to tell you what I did when I was going through my divorce, and I realized after several years the effect that all of it was going happening with my kids. When everybody got of age, I said, okay, we're going to have one-on-ones and you guys are going to tell me how and what it is and about me, or what you didn't like, or what angered you. I just let them roast, right? I let them just talk to me on each, and because I grew up in a time and in a household that I had no voice, no
Mhm.
voice, and there was a lot of abuse and addiction, all these things. There was a lot. And so, and as educated as my family was, they still, so that's why addiction, doesn't discriminate. Abuse, it does not discriminate. It doesn't matter what social class, what you are, it's there. And so if I felt any kind of way, I couldn't tell my mom anything. And even if it was the most PC, respectable way I can come up with it, I was going to get the shoe, or the back of her hand. You couldn't tell her, so when I said to my kids, they looked and they were like, am I on candid camera? Is this a joke? Are you going to box us? What's going to happen? Because this is an unheard thing in our
Mhm.
family. You don't do that. But I felt that in order for me to heal, I needed to know what I needed to heal, for one, right? Because the people that I looked up to weren't telling the truth. For whatever reason, they weren't helping me see what I could do different or guiding me in that way. So I had to ask these kids, and they weren't going to say it to me in a way, they just like, man, that's not cool. You did this, you said this, and blah, 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 and we don't understand, and we're here. And I had to suck it up and listen to that. And I think a lot of us need to do that at some time in our life. Even if you think you are the greatest parent, you need to sit back and have that conversation, because what you're doing is preparing that child to go into their adulthood, to go into the workforce, to have healthy relationships, period, with people, whether it's professional, whether it's intimate, whether it's just their friends. you have to prepare them. So that conversation is what is going on with you. I always used to say, what is your malfunction, what is happening here? And then they talk to me.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
boys talk to me now and tell me things that they should not be telling me, like I'm their dad. But it's my fault because they're 15 and 17. And I said, you could tell me anything. You can come and tell me anything. So now we have that relationship, and I'd be like, oh God, I don't want to hear this. But I rather them come to me and ask for advice at whatever level, because I know I'm going to die before I tell them something crazy, before I put them in harm's way. And
Yeah.
they don't need to get it off the street or hear it from some girl who's just trying to be with them, right? So you want to, you got to sit there and hear all the stories and all the slang names that they're calling girls now, and then you got to correct them, because at the end of the day you want to raise respectable men,
Yeah.
right? So when you're a single mom, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And for half their lives, I was a single mom, and so yeah, it's very hard to do that. But you know, man, they didn't ask to be here. They did not ask to be here. And if we're gonna make that choice to do that, we damn sure better take the bad with the good,
Yeah.
you
Well, I
know.
think what you did was have a powerful conversation, and it's a very sobering conversation when you ask your kids, like, was there anything that I did that I
Hmm.
don't recognize that I did that I need to apologize for, basically?
Yeah.
And that's a big conversation. And clearly, we could go on this conversation for days, but I think we've maybe should hit another one. But just remember
Okay.
your kids are your legacy, and don't use them as pawns in your relationships if your relationship's going sour, and take responsibility for your actions. I'd
Yes.
say that would nutshell it.
Oh, wow. Yes, you have a relationship with kids that are the same. Yes, 39, 34, 22. This is some great stuff. Thank you, you guys. Hi, Miss Joan, Queen. I'm sorry, I have to say hi to these people. This is like, oh wow. This is great. Hi, Dr. Devin. Okay, so now we basically have given you guys, don't go and leverage your children 101. All right, and all the reasons why you don't do that. And Spirit just came to me, and I shared a whole lot of that stuff that I did not intend to be sharing. But you need to hear it. Someone genuinely commented and sent us something that was very personal, and they needed that conversation. And so then I need to be real and say, this is why I'm qualified to talk to you about this,
Yep.
because it is personal, and it happens, and I understand. And just to wrap that up before we start going into the other questions that viewers had asked us about, just remember that it's never too late to heal, and you can heal with your children and your grown children. And if you still haven't said sorry, or you understand, or thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I didn't know. I was crazy when I was going through that. I did not know. And we tend to get
So
self-indulged and
true.
involved and all into our feelings, and there's three, four, five other little feelings running around too. And that's the mistake we do as parents. And so knowing that, we have to change that, and you can heal together. And sometimes all it takes is you recognizing and accepting that
Hmm.
that was a problem and an issue. you know Start there, and then the conversation opens up and the communication opens up. And if therapy or coaching or a spiritual guide, church, or whatever it is that you need to do to complete that healing, you will know. But you won't know until you ask the questions and you go into that conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna challenge everybody, if anybody has anything that they think they've left on the table and they haven't cleaned house all the way, start now. All right.
Never too late. I agree.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a one person asked about, and this is, we're staying on the family topic because we got a lot of questions about that, is when there is a head, and like what is it called, the matriarch of the family,
The
when
matriarch or
there's
the
a
patriarch.
situation
Yeah.
like that and the
Hmm.
individual is dies, what advice do you give to this individual that's going through that, as to what scenarios have anybody been in, when that happens? Because we all know, usually when there's a death in the family, and that person is the person who's leading the family, or everybody loves that person. It could be a great aunt or whoever, and she's gone, and there's assets involved, and there's people fighting all over the place, and all kind of crazy stuff happens. This person is going through that right now. What comforting advice could you give?
Well, I don't know if it's comforting, so I apologize right there. But that is such a hard situation for every family that has to go through it. So my heart goes out to you. You know, I'm also in real estate, and we deal a lot with family trusts in real estate when family members have passed away. And I will tell you, as an adult, get a trust. Have some kind of directive for yourself and your assets, because you don't want your family going through all of that. And
Yeah,
if you're in a situation like this particular person is, where maybe that isn't a part of what the scenario is, and
yeah,
everybody's just fighting at each other, I would just recommend that you really sit down with yourself or somebody that you can be close with and talk about, what did that family member want? What was their desires? Did anybody talk to them about, did a grandchild's, I was going to give you that ring, or whatever it might
right,
be, figure out, come, I would say come from the position of what would that person have wanted.
yeah,
Because if everybody can come together with that purpose, then you're going to be able to move through that really difficult time a lot easier. And
right,
it takes time, and that hurt, that void never goes away.
yeah.
It gets a little bit easier, but it doesn't ever go away. And I really just recommend that, come from the position of what would they want, where,
Yeah,
whatever their assets were, because it could be real estate, it could be, you know, antiquities. I mean, I don't know, but
yeah.
they didn't give us those details. But I'm just saying,
No,
come from that position of what would that person have wanted, because everybody fighting, pretty sure that person wouldn't have wanted that.
no, and I think too. Again, it's a loss,
Mhm.
and you're gonna grieve, and you have to give yourself grace. You have to go through it, and knowing that this is something that, if you know ahead of time, if the person is ill, like situations I had, where family members are sick, and we're currently going through something too now with that, is that you have to spend as much time and honor that person's life while they're still here. Love them, let them know that you love and care. And even if it's sending a simple message, if you can't see them all the time, a phone call, I'm thinking about you, doesn't have to be a long, drawn out conversation, but that goes a long way. If a person is sick and they're not close with their family at the time, I mean, in distance, I don't mean close as in relationship, but just, a quick phone call, or when you can, go be there with them, and be intentional about your time, so that that time and that space that you have with that individual is all about them at that moment. And what you're getting from that is seeing them in their light and being happy, knowing that they're down to their last of whatever it could be, weeks, months, years, or whatever, days in some situations. But you have to honor that, respect that, and give yourself grace, because it is hard, and there's a lot of guilt when you're left.
Mhm.
and someone you're close to passes away. There's a lot of guilt with that. Um, wow, that's an emotional topic.
Yes, it is.
So I hope that gives some comforting, and that if there's anything that we can do offline, you know where to get a hold of me. Okay. And let me see, one other question here on that I guess kind of piggybacks, and these are all different people. Said that could families use more support with their grandparents? Absolutely. Absolutely. But, I mean, besides the outside agencies that a lot of seniors are getting now, because if you're on, the Medicaid and whatever, you can get what is the in-house services now. How about, we all just be good people and rally around. If you have to take turns, if you're close enough to your ailing grandparents or seniors in your families, even if it's five cousins or three brothers and sisters. Okay, you take Tuesday, you take Saturday, I take Wednesday. And I mean, there's things that you can do within your little niche. If there's not money to bring in home care, then what we do is we all try to take some piece of it, some piece to make it easier for that individual. If you're taking care of their finances, if you can't be there to see them, if you're taking care of something for them and doing it digitally, just step up, everybody. And it's just called humanity. It's called humanity. And one of our viewers said that, just simply DM'd me the word humanity. And I said, can you give me a little bit more? Are we talking about the madness that's going on in this world right now? And he didn't respond to that. But it's fitting to what we're talking about, because at the end of the day, no matter if you're being an idiot with the way that you're using your kids in a bad relationship, all the way to a elder that is ill and needs your help, is we got to have humanity. We have to just figure things out and not be cruel, because I bet you when they were up skipping and hopping and running around and giving you things and buying you things and taking you somewhere, you didn't mind. You didn't mind going and being there. It's really
Mhm.
funny how when you're no longer in a position to help people, or show up for people, everybody forgets about you, you know?
Yep.
And
I would just add to that that there's also resources out there that you can connect into to, there's well checks on seniors. There's I forget what the food one is, but they do dinners and bring them food and things like that.
oh
So if
yeah,
you're
Meals
not
on Wheels.
Meals on Wheels, if you're
Hmm.
not available and you're worried that your senior family member isn't getting food, then tap into those resources as well.
Okay, yeah. Um, yeah, at the end of the day, we have to take care of our own. We have to take care of our own. We have to find a way to do it, and be there to take care of our own. Yes, and then he said, yes, be prepared. Prepare our babies to have a voice and to be strong, which is where it starts.
Amen.
It's where it starts. So many of us behave the way we do because we're a product of our environment, how we were raised, right? And it starts very young. Between 2 and 6 is when you get you're defined as to who you are, unless you start doing the work, which it can happen. It can definitely happen. Um,
And
and
you have
too
a
many people
choice.
say, that's how I was raised. That's just how I am. I don't even know any better.
No.
But that's when we have to
Mm,
take accountability because nobody's parents were perfect. None of
no.
us were perfect. I grew up with my kids. None of us were perfect. And so if you want to at least try to get to some level of excellence, because no one can be perfect. We're not God. You know, you You have to have that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
realize and accept what you don't know, and
Yeah.
then go out and do the work. Do the
Yeah.
work. If you're going to go to a 9 to 5 and do the work for somebody else, you don't want to do it for yourself. You want to do it for your family. That's where it needs to start. It's definitely where it needs to start. Okay, now this is a big one. And I'm going to ask this question, and this may take us to the end because I want all of you to think about this and give your honest opinions. This person said, "What are your thoughts on open relationships?" Now, that's all they said. So I don't mean it. I'm not judging. I'm just putting it out there. Could be having a relationship and leaving the front door open, right? Having a relationship out in the open, you know, public display of affection, or having a relationship with multiple partners as long as you both agree is what I I looked it up. I researched that question, and that's what it said. It said that. That's not that's not something in my, but no judgment here. There's no judgment here. So, what do you think about that?
Well, I would say if that's what road you want to go down, then everybody needs to be aware of that road.
Hmm.
I mean, otherwise you're a cheater is what you
Right,
are.
right,
And I've been on the other side of that and I'm like, well, hey, if you're going to be going out, then that shoe should also I should be able to wear those same shoes and walk out the door as well. So as long as everybody's in the same or on the same page,
right.
then it's your life. There's no judgment here. Go do what you want to do and be what you want to be. And if that's what your relationship is all about, I wonder if there's something that's a little bit missing in the relationship, or you personally have some things that maybe you're not fulfilled on. But I know
Yeah,
there's huge communities out there that totally are into that, and that's fine.
right.
Maybe that's your community, and they will welcome you with open arms.
Yeah,
So, you know, to each is your own. Just make sure your partner knows about it, because then it's a whole other conversation.
right. And not only your partner, the person you're stepping out with. It's
Hmm.
like you need to be honest with everybody that's involved with this
Hmm.
kind of transaction.
Right.
You
Exactly.
you really you need to be very transparent, because what happens is when people cheat, when people lie, and people play games like this, you take away choices, the other
Hmm.
person's choice, their choice to either join you in that shenanigan or whatever the situation is, or their choice to say this isn't for me and exit stage left. And
Right.
that's unfair,
Yeah.
because then the only person that's getting any benefit out of that behavior is the individual who's
Who's
stepping
doing it?
out and who's
Yeah.
doing it. And because we're on the topic of children and children being affected in all these different various relationships and behavior, because it's the behavior, it's not technically the relationship. You can be a single mom, a single dad. You can be a dad and dad, mom and mom, couple. You can be all these different things if the relationship is healthy, because the behavior is healthy and the
Exactly.
intention is right. So when there's
Absolutely.
children involved with this kind of display of a relationship, how do you hide that? How do you carry on with that kind of thing? Because you don't think the kids are going to see daddy's always gone every Wednesday. Right? You don't think that, if you were bold enough to bring someone back home, they don't see her slipping out at 3 in the morning. These are things that people get so caught up in what they want and what they're doing in their life that the effects of your children being a part of that dynamics is unfair, again, because they didn't choose that. So, when you're doing all these things, you have to think about the whole pie,
Yeah.
the whole pie,
Yep.
and how it's going to be. You can't just crust one half of the pie and think everything else is going to gel just nicely on the other half without the crust there. Doesn't work like that. So, did we get any comments, Jay, on what people feel about that so we can share? No, everybody's stuck. I'm sorry, you guys. I told you it was going to be, I mean, I have some religious people here. I have some people long-term relationship and not,
I think
but again,
it's
we're
a
not
touchy
judging
subject.
anybody.
No, it's just a touchy subject. And if
Yeah,
that's what you want to do, everybody needs to be on board. If
right,
that's not something you want to be a part of, that person has the right to know that that's what you want to do. It just comes down to being, transparent about your your desires. And again, I just say if you're wanting multiple partners, maybe you should take a look inside and see why you want multiple partners.
right. Absolutely,
Just no judgment. There's
absolutely. And,
all.
we really have been excited about doing this live and talking about viewers comments and the DMs. Every time I say that, I get this little ick, like, am I saying that right? Am I supposed to not? Because it seems to be with such a negative connotation when you're watching reality TV and they be like, he slid in my DM, right? So I'm like, you know, it's none of that. It's just their way of saying I don't have your phone number to text you these things that I don't want you to it to be public. So that's how I'm getting this information. But I thank everybody who was
Yeah.
vulnerable enough to send me messages to say, yeah, you can, on your live, you can say, shout it out and have a conversation about it. Because what we hope that anybody that is listening or you've shared with, and please share, like, share, share. Everybody just take your phone out right now and just go ahead and share it while we're still live. Just share it to all of your social media links. I just love you so much. Did I tell you I cook a mean braised short rib? Wink, wink. Okay, so go ahead, share it, do all the things, subscribe. But more importantly, our hope is that if any of this is resonating with any of you, if you've been there, if you know someone, if you're currently going through it,
Yes.
this is why these topics come up. We're not just pulling random topics up just because this is really things people have come to us with or that is already on our existing platform in our Goddess book series. And we pull from that and we talk about it because it's one thing to have gone through the trauma and then you just hold it in and then you sit and you write it down and it's on a shelf somewhere and we're bringing it to life. That's what we want to do is
Well,
bring
and
it to
that's
life.
that's the thing, Cara, is that the whole premise for the platform was because we started recognizing that as we shared, we started to heal. As we
Yes.
heard other stories, we started to heal. And it became it became the platform of let's share and help each other heal because the one thing that happens, the main thread through every tragedy is we think we're alone and nobody else knows what we're going through. And that is
Yeah.
so far from the truth. There is somebody, it could be your neighbor, it could be a family member, it could be somebody, just down the street that's going through something similar that you've gone through or have gone through. And if we would just come out and talk about it and let people know that we are not alone, that
Yes.
this isn't just you in this dark cloud dealing with this. There's so many people and there are so many resources out there. And if you're not sure where to go, we'll be that resource for you to help guide you because no reason why you can't get help and start your healing journey, and that's why we're here.
Absolutely. And for this, the children that the gentleman that sent me that message, if there's any control that he has or can speak to someone that may be a decision maker to help get that child into some kind of counseling or some kind of therapy, or a support group after school. So girls and boys club is good, for things like that. A sport or dance, or I don't know if it's a girl or a boy. I don't recall right now, but something that they can be able to be around other people, socialize, begin their healing process, because you may not be able to do anything about the mother or the father, in his situation it's the mother. You can't change her. She has to make that decision. She's grown. But as that child now have being put in the middle of that and used the way they're used, you have to, make suggestions. I don't know, talk to the teacher, the school counselor. Um, just so you know that teachers and counselors are mandated by the states, every state, any state across the nation, for situations like this, and for confidentiality. So if one parent comes in, now I'm not saying this so you can be messy and go do something that puts the child in danger and then CPS is involved. You have to be very careful when you do this. But you go in and you talk to them and you say simply, because of the separation that me and the other parent is going through, I would like my child to start being canceled. That's all you have to say, because when you start, well, she's this and he's that and they did this and that, then they want to bring in a third party, which may never be in the best interest of that child,
No.
unless there is physical abuse or drug abuse going on.
Yeah.
Then
Well,
you have to really be strategic about how you do that, because the child will end up caught up in the system. So you have to be very careful and make sure there's no allegations. But for the best interest of supporting your child, if you know the other parent will not go out and actively seek or be involved with giving that child any kind of therapy or coaching, schools provide it, boys and girls clubs provide it, your after school programs. You really have to do the digging, look into it, and they are mandated to be for confidentiality and to support you. So that is one thing I can share for when you're dealing with a situation where you're not getting support on the other end.
yeah.
And it's really
Well, and again,
unfortunate.
I'll just, that's a great first step, and I love that. Start with those. You might have to go to the court system though and
Yeah,
have it court mandated that your children or child can get some counseling, because if it's high conflict. But
right.
but
Yeah,
those clubs and other resources are great to start with.
yeah.
And then it's kind of
Yes.
under the radar,
Right,
if you will.
because until you're ready to take that next step,
Yeah.
we can go ahead and DM me again, and then we'll have a whole nother episode on that, because we both have very firsthand knowledge of the court systems and child support and divorce and all that stuff. So we can
Hmm.
definitely give you some directions on that. But at least you start there so that it's not so aggressive and you're not looked at as the aggressor, because that's always what happens, and you're just being a caring parent that is trying to find a solution.
Yeah.
That's you're keeping the child in mind too, because when a child has to go into court over their parents,
Hmm.
that's the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to balance when we decide to bring those little ones into the world.
Yeah.
We have to really remember that, and be adults, be mature, be caring. Don't just be self-absorbed and think about yourself. Again, I think one of our viewers said it the best: have humanity.
Yeah.
Yes. And we want to thank you you for sticking in there. A lot of you are still online, and we want to thank you for joining us on our first live. And again, we're going to ask you just keep those suggestions coming in and the comments coming in, the likes and the shares. And everybody, just be kind, be lovely out there, and be well.
We will see you on the next episode. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with us. And we really appreciate the questions. We will always keep you confidential, so keep the questions coming in. And if there's any others that you'd like us to touch on in for future episodes, even, we'd love to hear those. And yeah, in purpose we find power. So go be unleashed.